Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Gobble, freaking gobble, guys. Happy Thanksgiving week. I'm Nate Jackson. That dude right there in the beanie in the lodge is Brandon Krisztal. Live Mood's not joining us today. This is Off Field Guerrilla Sports. Brandon, how you doing, buddy? Are you cozy? Are you sitting by a fire?
I am. I'm literally sitting by a fire. There's about 2 feet of snow up here in the mountains. So
Wow.
Good day to be on the slopes, but also a good day to be talking football with you.
Yeah, are you headed out to the slopes after this, Brandon? What's on the agenda?
We skied yesterday, and I think the plan is to maybe ski. We got 2 little ones, and my 4-year-old didn't want to get in ski lessons, although she needs it. My wife was carrying her down the hill basically the whole way. My 6-year-old, he's ripping it. So they went up and did a run, the 2 of them. I just learned to ski last year, Nate. So I grew up in Texas. I was a bad snowboarder when I got to Colorado. Then I retired, and now I'm a average skier, I think. But so maybe, hopefully, with all this great snow, great time to be up here, that's for sure. And hopefully people are driving safely.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit down here in Denver, not quite as much as you guys got up there in the mountains, but pretty cool to have a white Thanksgiving. And we're going to get a little bit later, have some Thanksgiving-themed questions. We're going to answer some questions about food, favorite, least favorite Thanksgiving foods, traditions, such things like that. We're also going to answer 6 very big questions today. Questions like, will Sean Payton win Coach of the Year? Questions like, will the Broncos win a playoff game? Will Bo Nix win Offensive Rookie of the Year? Will Travis Hunter win the Heisman? Who is the Denver Broncos MVP? And what will the Broncos' final regular season record be? We'll get into that in a little bit, but there's some Broncos breaking news on this morning. We talked a little bit about, have we talked about Greg Dulcich getting released, Brandon? Greg Dulcich, Gonzo, Drew Sanders activated. Your thoughts on Greg Dulcich getting axed?
Yeah, it was one of those things where he just wasn't working out the way they had hoped, the way George Payton, when he drafted a guy that not only had UCLA pedigree, but I believe they went to the same high school. And so when he took him, you thought, okay, and you saw the film and you knew they had Albert O, but you're like, okay, Greg Dulcich doesn't look as fast as Albert O, but he just keeps getting open when you're watching his UCLA tape, and you're like, okay, let's see that in the pros. And we know his first 2 years were just totally derailed by injury. And then this year, when he's been healthy for the most part, he just couldn't find his footing on the field. And so I think they just cut their losses. I broke the news literally minutes before it hit the wire on Monday. And so it didn't surprise me when it came down and when I got tipped off about it happening. And it didn't surprise me either that he found a new home very quickly. I'm sure several teams put a claim in on him because they see the talent. That happens with high draft picks, right? If you're a first, second, or third round draft pick, you will get claimed because people just want to kick the tires on you.
Yeah, Greg Dulcich getting claimed by the New York Giants, an organization in turmoil themselves. So he's going to go, maybe, did they even have a tight end there? I don't even know who their tight end is. So Greg, presumably healthy, been a healthy scratch.
Darren Waller retired, right? So you lost Darren Waller.
Yeah. See, I always thought a healthy scratch was when my doctor told me I wasn't going to need antibiotics for that itch. But Greg Dulcich, a healthy scratch for 8 straight games. And coincidentally, the Broncos are getting rolling during those 8 games. And no matter how much talent you have, no matter how much they like you, if they try as hard as they try to get Greg Dulcich the ball and then they pull you off the field, and that's when they get cooking, you're probably not going to ever get back on the field again. Greg Dulcich was not a player who was a versatile tight end. And Sean Payton likes versatility. There's a reason why Nate Atkins is on the field so much. There's a reason why Adam Troutman is on the field so much. There's a reason why Michael Burton's on the field so much. There's a reason why LJ Humphrey is a starting wide receiver. Is it because of their receiving stats? Absolutely not. It's because physicality, toughness, the ability to be able to catch the ball and block gives play callers an advantage, because if you're on the field and you can only do one thing well, the defense kind of knows what you're going to do. That one thing that you do well. If you can do all the things pretty well, it opens up the playbook for people like Sean Payton to be able to call anything at his disposal instead of putting Greg Dulcich on the field and knowing that there's certain things he can't do. So Greg Dulcich finding a new home, and clearly Lucas Kroll, to me, has found a home here as well, at least for the time being, playing well on the field. This offense is thriving. All right, one more piece of news from the Denver Broncos, Brandon Krisztal. Will Lutz named AFC Special Teams Player of the Week for his 5 field goal, 2 extra point performance this last weekend, shoring up that field goal operation. So kudos to everybody on that unit, not just Will Lutz for dialing down the kick, but Will Lutz, AFC Special Teams Player of the Week, Brandon.
Yeah, and second time he received that honor this year. It was one of those games, too, when you're watching it, you're thinking, well, this feels like a Special Teams Player of the Week kind of performance. And I think a lot of people predicted that. I may have tweeted it. I know I did last week with Bo Nix. And unless someone's going to have a big return and you had 2 AFC teams playing on Monday night, or someone was going to hit 6 or 7 field goals, you thought Will Lutz was going to win these honors. And so he's been really good. And even the kick that was blocked by the Chiefs, that felt like that was going in. And if they would have made that, I guarantee they would have won, Nate. I told you that before. And if that kick would have against the Chiefs, I guarantee they would have won. But we see why the Will Lutz experience was so important to Sean Payton as he moved on from Brandon McManus at a weird time in the offseason a year ago. And then Will Lutz came in and was really good. Then Will was going to actually follow McManus's path to the Jaguars, and Sean Payton calls him up and talks him into staying. And I think they even gave him maybe a little less money or same money. I don't know. Either way, 1 less year. But he's been money, and he's made 13 kicks since that blocked field goal. And he's a weapon. When you've got a guy that you can just count on to go make a kick, it's huge. And so it's one more reason why the Broncos are playing as well as they are.
Yeah, Will Lutz is dialed in. You can tell by a kicker's body language, the way the ball comes off his foot, the trajectory of it, whether he's lacking confidence or his technique is a little bit off or something. There's a hitch in his giddy up or something's getting in his head. A lot of times it's just a mental thing. These guys have very few variables when they go out there. It's either right hash, left hash, center, of course, the wind and the weather, but every swing of your leg should be identical. It's like going to the driving range and swinging a golf club, or the different clubs or your different, angles of your foot based on the distance and the weather.
It should be the same every time.
What's that?
It should be the same every time. I wanted to ask you, though, because you played with Jason Elam, and we've been pretty lucky here. You had Jason Elam for 15 years, whatever it was. Yeah. A Ring of Fame worthy career, probably a Hall of Fame worthy career if they put more kickers in. But Jason Elam, I imagine that when you played with Jason Elam, I understand he didn't make every kick, right? No kickers made every kick. But similar to what we've seen with Justin Tucker all those years. But Jason Elam, then Matt Prater, and then Brandon McManus for a good chunk of the last 20 years, 30 years. The Broncos haven't had too much kicker turnover, but when you were out there with Jason Elam, you had to think, okay, that's 3 points. Then we're good. That's 3 points. No problem. Right?
Yeah. That confidence, like to have a guy that is going to make it. And when he misses it, it's a surprise versus the guy that's going out there and he's going through some issues mentally. And you're just like, I hope he makes it. That's a horrible feeling to have. I hope our kicker makes it. I didn't ever have that feeling. And Matt Prater was a good kicker with us as well. And you talked about Brandon McManus and now Will Lutz. This is a great place to kick. The air is thinner. There's no surprise that, I don't know how many 60-plus yard field goals have been made in the history of the NFL, but, Elam had the record, and then Prater, and I think they've all kicked like a 63 or 64-yarder. Am I right?
Yeah, Janikowski, I think, set the record. He hit it 64. The only one that's, I think, surprised anyone was when Justin Tucker hit that 66-yarder, I want to say in Detroit, in the Dome to win the game. But it feels like every other record since Tom Dempsey with the half a foot made it in Tulane Stadium in New Orleans a million years ago, that since then, they've all been, all the records have been set a mile high, as you think they should. But beyond being able to make it from distance, you still have to make it through the uprights. And it's a credit to the Broncos over the last 3 decades that they've had, for the most part, such consistent kicker play.
Yeah. And to your point about Jason Elam, he would run on the field. We knew he was going to make it. And he made it and ran off the field, and we didn't see him again. You just don't even see him. You don't see him in meetings. You don't see him at the facility very often. He's out at practice for a little bit just when he needs to kick, and I don't know where he went after that. He may well have disappeared, or just like he disappeared from vision, but you don't really have to be around. If you're a really, really good kicker, in fact, the more invisible you are, in my experience, the better. That's why it was so weird to have a kicker like Brandon McManus, who was so out front, who was a union rep, a team captain, a guy who wanted to, talk a lot, make speeches, stop practice with goofy antics, dressed up as a referee in the middle of training camp, trying to provide levity. And that's cool. He's a funny guy. He's a fun guy. He's a funny guy. And he had a lot of friends on the team. I guess Von Miller was his best buddy, and that emboldens you when your best buddy is like the best player in the world at his position to be the guy, the cool guy. But I always appreciated a kicker who was not trying to be the cool guy, who was just really good at kicking, who ran on, kicked the football, and ran off the field, because his job, the kicker's job, is so much different from everyone else's job. You don't run. You don't have to run anywhere. You don't have to hit anybody. You don't have to tackle. You don't have to block. You don't have to really get hit. You're protected by literally 9 people. And so your job is just very, very, very different. And so the kickers who appreciated that difference, who didn't, see themselves as one of those guys, as weird as it sounds, who understood his job and how important it was, but also how separate it was, I think was what made a kicker great. I know you have to be yourself, and your personality is important, and you want to be able to thrive and be one of the guys, but you're not. What do you think, Brandon? Are the kickers one of the guys?
Unless they're the guy that's flying down and making every tackle, and you're like, oh, this guy was a safety that just happens to kick really well. Which
I did see the dude, I don't know who it was, a kicker for some team. Maybe it was a punter or a Ariza or whatever. He punted the ball and just sprinted down, got ahead of the punt team, and laid out a dude on a tackle. Sometimes the punters are typically better athletes than the place kickers, because they just are.
Riley Dixon, I think, was an all-state baseball player and might even play quarterback. That's why we've heard them say that he's going to throw it at some point. And so you certainly have, guys that are multi-sport athletes that might kick and punt. Certainly a lot of soccer players. I go back to when I was in high school, he should have been our starting strong safety, but he was such a good soccer player, was a captain at Tulsa. I think he might have even played in the MLS a little bit, a guy named Anthony Pampalonia. He was only allowed to be on kickoff team. And this dude was probably our second or third fastest player. He kicked the ball off, and he was beating down the gunners. He was beating everybody, and he led our team in special teams tackles my junior year, because that was the only time he could play, he could kick or could tackle was on kickoffs. The soccer coach wouldn't let him go play safety, or else he would have been, a John Lynch style, Brian Dawkins style strong safety. But your point about kickers, and that's what always made McManus really, in a lot of ways, he really was kind of one of the most interesting men in the world kind of guys. He caddied for Zach Johnson at the Masters Par 3 tournament. He flew with Peyton, and I want to say Joel Dreesen and Brandon Stokely to the Tonight Show after they won Super Bowl 50. He was one of 6 former teammates that Peyton invited to his pre-retirement party at the ESPYs in LA. He and Vaughn, like you mentioned, great friends. They're each other's godfathers for one of each other's kids. And so it's just not normal. The player rep thing, I guess I don't know. But yeah, to be that out in front and be that public and be one of the guys, it feels like McManus is one of one in that regard. I'm not saying other kickers don't have good relationships with their teammates. And you've seen it with Jason Elam. I remember talking to him at Mike Shanahan's Ring of Fame weekend. And you and your former teammates loved him, but it doesn't feel like he was out hitting the Vegas scene with you guys when Champ would charter a plane to Vegas. I don't think Jason Elam, who could have flown the plane, still wasn't making that trip.
Yeah, he had time to go get his pilot's license. He was an avid hunter. He was a writer. He wrote some books, some suspense thrillers. Very talented guy, and was one of the best kickers of all time. So Will Lutz, continuing that tradition of excellent kickers here in Broncos country, AFC Special Teams Player of the Week for the second time after kicking 5 field goals, 2 extra points. That's 7 made kicks in a game. This was after a couple weeks ago, the much maligned field goal protection unit broke down. So kudos to that whole unit for getting it done. All right, now, Brandon, are you ready?
Other thing.
Yeah.
One other thing. This is the tease for the 6 questions are coming. You touched on Drew Sanders. We probably need to at least figure out what you think his activation will mean to their pass rush rotation, which obviously Nick Benito is spearheading with Jonathan Cooper, kind of 1A, 1B. You like what you've seen from Ellis. They like DeAndre Tillman, who's then, he gets in the game and then he gets some playing time and he gets banged up. And so they've been waiting for Drew Sanders. They pretty much used the full 3 weeks to to get him ready. He's coming off a torn Achilles in April, to be back and ready to go in November. What's a fair expectation of Drew Sanders, who we know that they like, for a guy that was a pass rush specialist edge guy at Alabama, moved inside at Arkansas, a great high school player, at least if you ask Marvin Mims and guys that saw him play in high school, where he played for his dad in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So what do you think they should expect from Drew Sanders? Maybe not this week, but just in the final stretch of the season.
Well, you wonder if their willingness to let Baron Browning go had something to do with their plans, right, for Drew Sanders and their feeling about his trajectory. They like him a lot. They drafted him pretty high. What round did he go in, BK?
Third round, I want to say. Third round.
Yeah, so
Sounds
he's
right.
a fantastic athlete. You see him out there running around, especially the first camp that he had. He got hurt, obviously missed this whole camp, but really impressive athlete, long, strong, kind of guy that would be great off the edge, but also a really good special teams player. I would imagine his role right off the gate would probably be more in special teams than defense, maybe, 10, 15 snaps on defense situationally. It's hard to tell what they want, where they want him. And this defense is really cooking. And so where do they think he'll fit in? Would they want him back in the middle at all? Alex Singleton gets hurt. I mean, I know Justice.
Sorry, it just feels like he's an edge guy. It feels like he's an edge guy now. And
yeah,
so I think that's what, for now.
Yeah, I mean, why? His height, his size?
No, where they've been working him.
No, I'm asking you, why does he seem like an edge guy to you?
No, because they're playing him as an edge guy. I'm not saying that I have a preference.
You're saying at practice you see him on the edge?
That's my understanding, is that he's been working as an edge player.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying, I guess what I'm saying is that his versatility is enticing to a guy like Vance Joseph, who may have holes to fill, right? And it doesn't seem like edge is one of those holes right now. So I wonder, how they view him long term versus this season, and what they want to do with him coming back off an injury in the middle of the season when everyone is cooking. I'd say they bring him along pretty slow, probably special teams to start, and maybe 10, 15 plays on defense and see how he holds up. So yeah, you wouldn't want to put too much on his plate right away, but exciting to have Drew Sanders back. All right, now let's get into 6 very important questions. Boom. Question number 1, Chloe. Will Sean Payton win Coach of the Year? Before you answer that, Brandon, I'll give you the odds here. Sean Payton winning Coach of the Year is set at plus 475 right now. Dan Campbell, the odds-on favorite, plus 175. Kevin O'Connell, plus 400. Jim Harbaugh, plus 450. Mike Tomlin, plus 600. My question to you, Brandon, will Sean Payton win Coach of the Year?
I like his odds. What's interesting about Dan Campbell is very rarely do you see a team that's Super Bowl favorite have the Coach of the Year. And the Lions are that in the NFC. They were obviously in the NFC title game a year ago. And
who won it last year, Brendan?
Kevin Stefanski from the Browns, who might get fired.
Last year?
Yeah.
Wow.
And things happen fast. The reason this is going to take us on a quick sidetrack, but at the NFL Honors where Kevin Stefanski won it, the guy that introduced him is an actor, Justin. God, I can't remember his last name. He was on the show This Is Us, and now he's on that show Tracker. Justin Hartley, and he introduced him, or he gave out the award, and he said Steven Stefanski, Justin Hartley's character on This Is Us, which was like a 7 or 8 season show, was named Kevin, and he still got it wrong. And called him Steven Stefanski, but Kevin Stefanski won it a year ago. It feels like it's coaches like that often get that honor. The MVP is going to go to the best player on the best team, but the best coach or the coach of the best team rarely wins it. It's the coach that has the team you didn't necessarily expect sneaking into the playoffs. That's why I like someone like Sean Payton's odds perhaps better. And as you go down the list, Jim Harbaugh in year 1, maybe, but the Chargers have been a playoff team in recent years. I guess it wouldn't blow my mind if Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, losing Kirk Cousins and then losing J.J. McCarthy. Didn't know exactly what the plan would be there. I would think Kevin O'Connell has better chances. If I was going to put money down myself, I wouldn't bet on Dan Campbell, although it's not always that fun to bet on the chalky favorite anyway.
So you think Kevin O'Connell over Sean Payton?
No, not necessarily. I just put both of them ahead of Dan Campbell. I think the thing working against Sean is Sean, if that makes sense. It's the same reason Andy Reid's not winning Coach of the Year, is that Sean's had a lot of sustained success. So even though this is a really good coaching job, there's plenty of people out there who like Sean for who he is, but also don't like Sean for who he is. So I think that might be hard to sway voters as well.
Elaborate on that. What do you mean?
Sean might be the smartest guy in the room or one of them, but he'll also kind of let you know it, I think, from time to time. And I think that can be off-putting to the voters. Voters let their personal feelings get into this. That's why guys like T.O. and Chris Carter and Michael Irvin weren't first-team Hall of Famers. You played in the era with those dudes or crossed over with them a little bit and understood, like, there's no doubt that all three of those guys were first-team, first ballot Hall of Fame guys. You think about the way, and I understand steroids has made it obviously a little trickier in baseball, but people hated Barry Bonds because of how he interacted with everyone. But he was a Hall of Fame player. So I think that Sean's personality, which plenty of people like, but I think might rub some people the wrong way, could work against him, against someone like Kevin O'Connell or even Dan Campbell.
Who votes on this award, Brandon? Do you have a vote?
I want to say, no, I do not have a vote. I don't have any of the award votes.
Why don't you have a vote, Brandon? You've been at this thing for 2 decades. Why do you not have a vote?
That's a great question. Maybe because, I don't know, I should ask Arnie Stapleton, because I think the AP does. It's AP coach of the year.
Is it like Sean Payton, Brandon, that people, they know how good you are, but they think you're kind of an a-hole?
That could be it. I'm the Sean Payton of the media. Except that he has a ring and I don't.
Not yet. You're on your way to getting one. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes. Sean Payton's going to win Coach of the Year, and I'm going to tell you why. This won't be his first one. He won it in 2006 when he first took over in New Orleans by bringing that organization back from. I think they were 3-13 the previous year. Their first year he was there with Drew Brees, who finished second in the MVP voting. They went 10-6 and went all the way to the conference championship. And so it was an unlikely success story. But I think here, the football world at large will overlook Sean Payton's assholery and realize that he was able to take this Broncos team to the playoffs with a salary cap, $53 million or whatever, under what other teams were able to spend because of the money tied up in Russell Wilson, also a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. I think it's going to be a story at the end of the season that is, that earns him that reward and that award. And I think it will be well-deserved. All right, next question. Chloe, will the Broncos win a playoff game? Will the Broncos win a playoff game? Right now, if the playoffs were to start, they'd be in. And if they started tomorrow, they'd head to Buffalo, right, for the wild card game and play the number 2 seed of Buffalo Bills. Of course, the number 1 seed gets the bye, and that's Kansas City right now at 10-1. The number 2 seed is the Buffalo Bills. Now, a lot can change in the next 5 games for the Denver Broncos. For example, if they leapfrogged the Chargers, they might go to Pittsburgh, right? They might go to Pittsburgh in the opening round and play the Pittsburgh Steelers because Pittsburgh is number 1, or Houston Texans, who are number 1 in the AFC South. If you win your division, you host a playoff game. The Broncos probably are not going to win their division. No, they're not. The Chiefs are. So any playoff game they play will be on the road, and that would be either against the Bills, the Steelers, or the Texans. My question to you, Brandon Krisztal, will the Broncos win a playoff game?
The Broncos will beat the Texans. The Broncos would beat the Steelers, even in Pittsburgh. If the Ravens win that division, I don't love their chances to go there and win again. I think they'll make it a closer game. I don't love those matchups for them. And then the Bills feels like a toss-up. And if the Chiefs were to somehow be their first-round opponent, they've already shown they can go to Arrowhead and play winning football. I understand the kick didn't go in, so they didn't win the game. But they play the Chiefs tough, and they will have played them the week before. And who knows what that game would even look like. But I don't think they'd beat the Ravens. It feels like a toss-up at the Bills. This is kind of me. It's not a cop-out. They would definitely win a playoff game if they go to Pittsburgh or go to Houston. I like their chances in both of those games because I think that they'll be able to handle the Steelers' offense, and I think they'll be able to do enough against the Steelers' defense, more so than they did in week 2 when they saw them here in Denver. And so, yes, I think depending on the matchup, they will win a playoff game.
Depending on the matchup, yeah, it is. It's hard to project this. It's 5 games away from the Broncos, and some of these teams still have 6 games to play. So hard to project that. My answer is no, they won't win a playoff game this year, but they're going to make it. They're going to go on the road. They're going to taste it. They're going to be close. They're going to miss it, and that's going to be part of their origin story for the excellence that's going to ensue over the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years here, guys. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Broncos go on the road and win a playoff game. There is a world in which the Broncos could end up not the 7th seed, but the 6th or the 5th seed, win a playoff game on the road, and then have a home game, right? The next round, if a lower seed than them beats the higher seed, right? Isn't that right, Brandon?
Well, they would have to be the 5th seed, and the 6th and 7th seeds would both have to win, because automatically the lowest seed is going to go to the number 1 seed that has to bye. So they would have to be the 5th seed and then need both 6 and 7 to win. So odds are not on their side for that. They could actually have the home game the week after. If the 6th or 7th seed wins, they go on the road for 2 straight weeks and then play the 5th or the 6th or 7th seed in the AFC title game, which would be awesome. But we saw that when you were in the AFC title game, it took the horrendous Carson Palmer knee injury, but that bumped you guys up, and thus Pittsburgh came to Denver. When I imagine, at least heading into the playoffs, you guys thought you're probably gonna have to go through Cincinnati to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we thought we were gonna go to Indy, and Indy lost.
Right. You had Indy and Cincy were both higher seeds.
Yeah, no, we were the 2nd seed. We had a bye. Indy was the number 1 seed. They had Indy, and Pittsburgh went there and beat them, and so Pittsburgh came to us for the AFC Championship game. But
after they blew out Carson Palmer's,
right? Yeah, Cincinnati wasn't really part of the equation with us in that run. Maybe Pittsburgh beat Cincinnati first and then went to Indy or something like that. But you never know. 5 more games left for the Broncos and 6 for some of these teams. Like the Steelers could go on a little losing streak, and the Ravens might end up winning that division. The Miami Dolphins are still mathematically in it. They're 5-6. But if they win out, they're probably in. They got Tua back. He was offensive player or AFC player of the week, offensive player of the week this week. So he looks like he's back. The Chargers, 7-4. The Broncos are 7-5. So nipping at the heels of the Chargers there, and they're going to get a chance to play him in a couple of weeks. And then you got who else? Yeah, the Colts are still in contention there. They're 5-7. The Broncos can probably put a nail in the coffin when they come here in a couple of weeks. And yeah, so the likely playoff scenario is the Chiefs, the 1 seed, the Bills, the 2 seed. Right now, the Steelers are the 3 seed. The Ravens are the 4 seed. I'm sorry, the Texans are, I guess, because they win their division. But the Ravens have a 8-4 record. And then the Chargers and the Broncos. So it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. But the Broncos firmly in control of their own destiny. Next question. Chloe, will Bo Nix win Rookie of the Year? Bo Nix, as of now, his odds have improved. He's still the underdog when it comes to this award. Jaden Daniels still the favorite at -180. Bo Nix has improved to +150, and Brock Bowers still in the picture at +3,000. He's having a great year, but his team sucks, and he's not a quarterback. Brandon, will Bo Nix win Rookie of the Year?
I think Bo Nix will win Rookie of the Year, and don't look now, but Washington. I understand Jaden Daniels has been banged up, and that's affected his play. He was really good the other day. I forgot to swap him and Brock Purdy in one fantasy league, and I lost by 3 points. I would have won by 29 points. Either way, he's certainly slowed down, whereas Bo Nix feels like he's ascending. And because Philly's played so damn well, winning 7 straight after starting 0-2, I believe, they're firmly in the driver's seat, 3 games clear of Washington. I think they play one more time. I need to double check that. But Washington is a game behind Green Bay. They've got Arizona and Tampa, and even the Rams and the Niners all nipping at their heels, just a game or game and a half, 2 games, whatever it is. So there's no guarantee that Washington's even getting in the playoffs. I bet if we look at their schedule right now, Washington's going to have I think they're going to have to do their work just to get in. So they get a bye week next week after playing the Titans. So that feels like, in 2 weeks. They play the Titans Sunday, then the bye week, and then Saints, Eagles, Falcons, Cowboys. there's some losses in there to be had. I'm not saying they're definitely going to lose, but the point is they could go from looking like the division leaders because Philly stumbled out of the gates to not even being in the playoffs. Whereas the Broncos, and I guess it's not fair for me to just say that the Broncos won't potentially stumble also, but the Broncos have clearly been playing better and they still feel like they're on the upswing. Whereas Washington, especially that crazy game against a bad Cowboys team, certainly a team with a bad Cowboys, bad record with the Cowboys and Cooper Rush, not Dak Prescott as quarterback. Washington has taken a step back, and Bo's numbers are now as good, if not better, than Jaden Daniels in some metrics. And so I do think Bo Nix is going to win Rookie of the Year. I got a ticket on him, I think, at 12-1. It's not going to be or 11.5-1. It's not going to pay a lot of money, but it's going to be money in my pocket, and I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think Bo is going to win this award, and he's going to do so because he's playing better at a more important time. No one remembers who won September or October when a season's over. No one gives a crap because November, December, and January end up being the most important months. Of course, February, if you can make it that far. But Jaden Daniels had an excellent September, pretty good October, but he's fading. They've lost 3 straight at a very crucial point in the season, as you mentioned, Brandon. 7-5 and potentially fading. If these trends continue, Jaden Daniels is going to fall off and Bo Nix is going to surge. The Broncos are playing well as a team, and if they end up making the playoffs and the Commanders don't, that award is Bo Nix's. Boom. Next question, Chloe, and it's not an NFL question. This is a college football question, but it's relevant because this guy's in our backyard. Travis Hunter, two-way player for the CU Buffs, is the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman Trophy right now. Brandon Krisztal, will Travis Hunter win the Heisman? Right now, he's minus 1,000. Is that correct? I looked that up. That's an insane.
You got to put $1,000 down to win 100.
Wow. And so it's all but done. Ashton Genty plus 750, Cam Ward plus 1,200. Could there be a surprise in store, Brandon, or is Travis Hunter a shoo-in for the Heisman?
It feels like he is a shoo-in because of how well the Buffs have played and how well he's played in those games. I get that he didn't affect a lot against the Jayhawks, and as a corner, you can only do so much in the run game anyway. The Kansas passing attack didn't need to be stellar because they were just running the ball all over the field at Arrowhead last weekend. But anyone that's watched college football for a long time, and you and I certainly have, understands how unique what he's doing is, and to be out there for every play. And to be good. He hasn't been necessarily great in terms of numbers because they're not going to throw at him, so he's not going to have 15 interceptions. And he's part of a big-time passing attack with 3 other NFL receivers out there. So he's still able to find the end zone now 10 times. And when he has the ball in his hands, you can see how electric he is. It reminds me of what we did see with guys like Desmond Howard and Charles Woodson and Reggie Bush when they won the Heisman. That when they had the ball in their hands, you thought they were a threat to score every time. And there was an acceleration and an ability to make guys miss and to go find the football that he can do as a pass catcher. That catch he made against Utah in traffic and double coverage down just shy of the goal line was as good a catch as you'll see in a given college season. And so, you asked me if I was a voter for any of the NFL awards. I'm not. I had looked into Heisman voting years ago, because there's about 500 or so, and they kind of break it down by region, and there's a handful in each, and you have to go to so many college football games and watch so many games and commit to all this. But it's north of 500, the voter pool, and they have through the championship games to get those votes in. But Ashton Genty's not going to do anything that's going to blow anyone away at this point, other than he's putting up really good rushing numbers. But we've seen that from guys like Ron Dane and Barry Sanders. We can go down the list of really good college football running backs. But we've never seen in the modern, college football world what we're seeing with Travis Hunter and how unique his talent. Not just that he's playing, but he's playing really well on both sides of the ball. And so, yeah, I do think he's going to be holding up that hardware in New York in a couple of weeks.
So do I. It's unprecedented what he's doing. You mentioned the statistics on either side aren't necessarily Heisman worthy, but combined, and you see the snap count, the effect that he's having defensively. You've seen him, if you're watching these games, you saw him make a game-saving tackle on the goal line. Not a lot of corners can do that. He doesn't get thrown at much, so statistics defensively are a bit misleading there. And then offensively, you mentioned it, all the other receivers on that roster who may be taking throws away. My interest will be in what happens with him at the next level, how he's used. It's going to be a challenge for any coach. any NFL coach to play this guy both ways, because not just what happens on the field, but what happens in the week advancing the game, which is a lot of meetings, a lot of film, a lot of installation, and everybody who plays a certain position is in the room together. And so if you have Travis Hunter on your team and you want to play him both ways, what meeting does he sit in? What film does he watch? Because he can't watch it all. What plays is he in? What did he miss from not being in that meeting when he was in this meeting? And will that bit of information end up costing you or be more impactful than having him on the field at all times? It's going to take a smart coach to figure out exactly how to use him. But you mentioned the ball skills, unparalleled, the kind of catches he can make, the control in space, the ability to stop and start, the instinct, the nose for the ball, and the body control to be able to go and high point that thing. You can't teach that stuff. And so some team is going to be very happy to have him, and Travis Hunter will be the Heisman Trophy winner. You mentioned Ron Dane. Ron Dane was on my team in the only Thanksgiving game I ever played, and that was in Dallas, 2005, I believe it was. Ron Dane had a run in overtime to put us in field goal range where, you guessed it, Jason Elam trotted out onto the field, didn't even know he was there, trotted out onto the field, made the kick. We won the game and came home happy and full of turkey. All right, next question. Chloe, who is the Denver Broncos MVP? Brandon, how would you like to answer that question?
Well, I think it's obvious. It's your AFC Special Teams Player of the Week again. It's Will Lutz, right?
Hey.
Isn't that what everybody's going? No, I think it is obvious. And Pat Surtain is their best player. And Zach Allen is played at a Pro Bowl clip, and I think his absence was noticed on Sunday against the Raiders. And so you need him back. We'll see how he participates this week. It's worth noting the Broncos aren't practicing Thursday because of the extra day. They're going Wednesday, Friday, Saturday is their normal.
Whoa,
their
they're
normal
not practicing
Friday.
Thursday?
Nope, they're just getting the extra day because they got the extra day. The NFL put them on Monday.
Funny because remember when Nathaniel Hackett did that and everybody roasted him for it?
They freaked out. You know what else is going to happen? Mark this down.
I expect people are going to freak out again about this, or are they?
Well,
are people going to freak out about this, Brandon?
Probably not, because there's an extra day. Nathaniel Hackett did it in a normal week and just flipped Tuesday to Thursday. Which, again, why do you care what day the players get off unless you're a player? Otherwise, it's their work week, just like they don't care what day of the week you get off from your job. I understand. I'm just saying why people freaked out. And there's a rhythm to how you do things. They're also, after coming off that Thursday game against the Chargers now, I can almost guarantee you that Wednesday, Christmas Day, will be an off day. And they will go to work Monday, look at film. Tuesday will look like a Wednesday. Then also, because Monday will be, they won't even they'll look at film, but they'll also get on the field because they'll have had the 3 days with the mini bye. And so, unless they're playing Saturday, which they could be, and we'll find out against the Bengals. But don't be surprised if they're playing Sunday against the Bengals if Wednesday's off too for Christmas. Anyway, they're off tomorrow. So we'll see what Zach Allen is today, Friday, Saturday. Zach Allen's played really well. A lot of players, but Nick Bonito is, right at the top of the league in sacks. But without question, their MVP is Bo Nix because of the plays that he's been able to make game in, game out, and the plays that he hasn't hurt his team with. He hasn't taken bad sacks. He hasn't had bad turnovers. He's been as good as any rookie, and you saw C.J. Stroud protected the ball really well last year. But at protecting the football, at not putting his team in negative situations too often, and then making more than enough plays, 20 total touchdowns now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe I'm off by a touchdown or two, and really understanding this offense and giving his team confidence every week. So if you disagree with me, I'll be surprised, but I imagine that just like we've been on these other than the Coach of the Year votes, in terms of these questions, who is your MVP if mine's Bo Nix?
It's Bo. It's Bo. It's Bo. He's gotten better every game. He started off a little shaky, as most rookies quarterbacks do, but his learning curve has been pretty shallow, not steep. I don't know how you would say that, but he's gotten better a lot faster than a lot of people expected, and his numbers are improving every week. I think he went the first couple games without throwing a touchdown, right? When was his first touchdown that he threw? It was week 3, 4, something like that. But since then, he's
week 3 in Tampa.
Yeah, but then since then he's thrown 16 touchdowns to only 6 picks. He's 11th in the league now in touchdowns thrown. He's around that in yards, and this is after starting near the bottom of the league. So he's improved pretty quickly. And really, when you watch, you see a guy in command, a very confident player, a guy who doesn't get rattled when things are not going well, a guy who stands up at the podium after they don't go well and takes accountability for it, a guy who's pretty even keeled, which I really like. One of my old coaches would say, you don't get too high and you don't get too low. Everything that happens, you stay in the middle. And that's Bo. And that's what you like from your leader, not some, emotional, reactionary, like dude who flies off the handle and can't handle his emotions in the moment. Bo has a handle on his emotions in the moment. I think to me, that's why he is the Broncos MVP. You mentioned you mentioned Sean Payton and getting Thursday off. And I was just thinking about something because Sean Payton has coached for 17 years. This is his 17th year as a head coach, 17th year pulling the levers of when guys get off and how long will the practice be and when the buses will come and what the food's going to be and where we're going to stay in the hotel and that kind of stuff. He's really, really good at it. I wonder if he's ever had a Monday night game on Thanksgiving week, Brandon. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we could just go back and do that research or see if it's in the game notes, which I hadn't combed through yet because of the game not being till Monday, knowing that we're kind of working our way up to it. But what Sean is really good at for all of the kind of the this is Sean's world is he does have a pretty good pulse on what's good for his players. And when he hears something that's good for his players, this is what I appreciate about Sean Payton. And I remember when he got hired here, hearing this from people that knew him really well, that he was the first guy in the NFL, the first coach to use next-gen stats, because he always is walking around at Super Bowl week with Zebra Technologies. That's who powers next-gen stats. He wanted all the data available to him. He was the first guy to bring in the cryo chambers to the Saints facility, to bring in the flow tank. He would bring in food every Friday from really good New Orleans restaurants. I don't think he does that here because of how good the Broncos kitchen is in general and how good they're, I think they have an award-winning chef that just runs their kitchen. And so you've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner that was already established here. But when he was trying to figure out how to be better after the bye, he told us this story last year. He said he called Andy Reid, known him for a long time. He said, hey, what do you do that's made you so good after the bye? He said, the second the game's over, everyone's done. He's like, coaches may be in to clean some stuff up, but in general, no film the next day. We will see you. If the game's on a Sunday, we'll see you next Monday. If the game's on a Monday, we'll see you next Monday. So Monday night, after these guys are done, they are going to be cut loose until the following Monday, unless we have treatment. And that obviously changes anyone's travel plans if the guys are banged up. So things like that. And understanding that, hey, the league schedule has given you an extra week. Instead of making guys come in and do something, let's take advantage of it. They're playing well. This is kind of like throwing them a bone. Doesn't mean they won't have like a walkthrough. They could have a walkthrough actually or something to add just so they're in the building. But by not calling it practice, no media there, no media availability, and then they can get in, get out, go have turkey, watch some football with your family.
7-5, one game coming up before their bye, very late bye, 13 weeks before their bye, but they're pretty healthy, knock on wood, relative to that 13-week streak. So the bye is going to come at a good time. They'll have another mini bye after the Thursday game. Real quick though, Brandon, is there any chance any of these other games, these Sunday games that they have ahead of them, could get flexed into a Sunday night game? Is that possible?
I think you have to look at the weeks. It's certainly possible. I guess there's a world where the Bengals are playing well enough. And so if we jump ahead to that game, or the Colts even, right? Because your Sunday night game that week is Bears-Vikings. If the Bears fall off, maybe, or that becomes less sexy, but you probably want the number one pick and the Vikings being a playoff team. But then that Bengals game, everything about that is weird that week because of the Saturday, Sunday. We don't know when any of the games are, except have they not even announced the Sunday night game? The Sunday night game right now is Dolphins-Browns. So yes, that easily could be if the Bengals win the next couple of games and they're 6-7 or 7-7, I guess, going into that, and maybe that, or they get to 6-7 because they have to announce it a couple weeks out, and the Browns continue to not only lose this game but then lose a couple more or the next one after that. I wouldn't be surprised if that game is a Sunday night game. And there's also a world where the final week of the season against the Chiefs, if the Broncos are battling for playoff positioning and the Chiefs are battling for that one spot because the Bills are on their heels, and if the Chiefs lose, the Bills get the 1 seed. that could end up being your Sunday night game because they certainly haven't announced that. So let's not be surprised. We're going to see the Broncos obviously in primetime on Monday. They want to keep them in there. There weren't too many other great games, and with Thanksgiving, there's not as much flexibility, and so they're going to be on then the week, the week following or 2 weeks following against the Chargers, Thursday night football, and I won't be surprised if we see them on Sunday night football, perhaps against some Bengals or against the Chiefs. Would that blow you away? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of good games that final week of the season. I'm trying to see which ones even have playoff. Like Cardinals, Niners could both be battling for that 7th playoff spot, perhaps. But beyond that, it's a bunch of Seahawks, Rams. But otherwise, it's a bunch of crappy games in week. You got Commanders, Cowboys.
The Broncos are a crown jewel of NFL organizations. Always have been. Well, maybe not always, but have been for quite a long time. The tradition, the legacy, the trophies, the sustained excellence in on the field, off the field, organizationally. It's great for the league when the Broncos are playing well, which they're doing right now. They also have an enticing rookie quarterback. That screams primetime games to me. So if they are ascending, as you say, they're ascending as these games go on, I could see them getting flexed in one of these games. All right, we just talked about those final games that they have on the docket. They got the Browns, they got the Colts, they get the Chargers, they got the Bengals, and they got the Chiefs. 5 more games. Right now, the Broncos are 7-5. Brandon Krisztal. Chloe, throw up that last question. What will be the Broncos' final regular season record? Brandon Krisztal. Are you related to Billy Crystal by any chance? City Slickers?
I'm not. Our names are spelled differently and pronounced differently, but it'd be cool if I was. Because then I could go to the Oscars and stuff. I was gonna get a pen out, but I realized I don't have a pen. I was gonna write my record down. You write yours down so that I don't steal your thunder.
Ooh, thunder thief.
But okay, here. With fingers, we'll hold up how many total wins. That way, nobody is. As you can tell, we did not. Other than seeing these questions, we didn't talk about our answers. That's why our answers are all the same to this point, except on the Coach of the Year thing. And I won't be surprised if Sean wins. I just won't be surprised if he doesn't. Okay, so on the count of 3, or you can count to 3, we can throw up how many total wins. Remember, just like referees do, the first number, so like 34, you got to do it backwards to the camera. See, so 3, 4. So if you're going to have them win 13 games, you would do this. Don't do it backwards. Don't do it in front of your face. Do it for the viewers, okay?
All right. On 3, so okay? 1, 2, 3.
Okay. So you think they're losing twice more?
Yeah, I think they're on the road and they're on the road in Cincinnati. They're on the road in LA. In against San Diego or LA, and they're playing the Chiefs. I mean, I think a 10 win season will probably get them in the playoffs, and I think that's a really good season. I know that's a really good season, and obviously it would be great if they win 11, but I think that they'll stumble on a couple of these, and that'll be fine. They'll still be in the playoffs, in my opinion.
I like them. I like them to get to 11.
Who are they going to lose
Chiefs
to?
Game's going to be really. Feels like they're going to lose to the Chargers in a much closer game, or lose to the Bengals after beating the Chargers in a close game because the Bengals have a top 5 quarterback talent and a top 3 receiver. And those guys will keep you in a game, even if their defense has let them down in some big games where those guys have gone off, and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Now the Bengals may be playing for nothing. That could look like a Broncos home game. When they played there a couple of years ago, and I get that Joe Burrow wasn't there, I remember looking at it. You could fly to Cincinnati, sit at the 50-yard line for $35. You could get in the building for like $9. Bengals don't have the best home fans when things aren't going well. I think when they're playing well and they're a playoff team, it's fine. If they stumble between now and then, and that doesn't get flexed to a Sunday night game, and I think they can flex into Monday night too, right? Isn't that a new thing this year, starting in right around now? We haven't seen it yet, but I think that that Bengals game could be tricky, even if they do find a way to beat the Chargers on the short week. The Chargers are really a fascinating team to watch, and you watch them on Monday. It feels like Jim Harbaugh is Justin Herbert's own worst enemy in some ways, but
why?
Nonetheless, he's so committed to running the football that it's not letting Justin Herbert, I think, be comfortable throwing the football enough throughout the game. He was against the Broncos on 3rd down. He was great. And that's what would worry me about would they finally do get totally clicking over the next couple of years, and Quentin Johnston turns into the number one receiver that you think he might be, and Ladd McConkey continues to come along. And I think they need to improve their running backs. I think the running backs are okay. I don't think they're great with Dobbins and Gus Edwards and company. They need to obviously find another stud tight end. It's hard when you've had Antonio Gates, but I think that Justin Herbert running what Jim Harbaugh wants to do, which is run first, run second, and maybe even run third, but throwing with a little more frequency is going to make them they're a tough team anyway, and they play really good defense. But it feels like there's still handcuffs, or that Justin Herbert's got one hand tied behind his back throughout games.
Well, that style really did give the Broncos a lot of trouble when they came here, and the Broncos are going on their territory, so they got to find a way to stymie that style.
Sort of.
Fight.
It's going to be a lot of Broncos fans.
Broncos got pushed around by the Chargers.
No.
That part's right. Scrimmage because I couldn't hear you when you were cutting me off. I'll stop talking. Make your point.
No, it's going to be a Broncos home game. That's it. It's not their turf. It's Broncos home game.
Oh, come on.
But
okay.
Short day.
There'll be fewer. Put it this way, Brandon. There'll be fewer Broncos fans ratio-wise in LA than there are here. I understand SoFi is not a real home field advantage. What I'm saying is they came in our territory when it was a real home field advantage, and pushed us around. The Broncos are going to have to find a way to not let that happen.
Or you could go glass half full and say the Broncos in the fourth quarter really turned it on. And
That's
so
true.
The Broncos have momentum. They have momentum.
They do.
Based on the last time they saw each other. That's like a team getting run out of the gym in basketball. Like, well, they won the fourth quarter. They scored 40 in the fourth quarter, and the home team only scored 18. Like, yeah, but they still won by 12. So
silver lining. And the Chargers might fall off a little bit as well. I mean, they didn't look great against the Ravens there. And so hopefully Sean Payton can figure that out, and Vance Joseph as well can figure that out. All right. You say 11-6. I say 10-7. Both are fantastic seasons with double-digit wins. Those are our 6 questions, but we got a couple more, and they're Thanksgiving theme related. Everyone, including me and you, Brandon, are going to be stuffing ourselves tomorrow, maybe even earlier than that. There's going to be a lot of football going on as well. 3 games to watch, a lot of food to eat. Some of it is good, maybe some of it not so much. Brandon, before we get into the least favorite Thanksgiving dish, Chloe, can you throw that next Thanksgiving themed question? What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish, Brandon Krisztal?
It almost looks like a turkey. Remember how you'd have to draw a turkey?
Yeah, just
almost with the thumb. Yeah, let's just turn sideways and yeah. Either way. I'm always a fan of a good green bean casserole and a good sweet potato dish. Sweet potato dish that, whether it's just straight sweet potatoes or it's got marshmallows in it and stuff, I will have that on my plate happily. And I'm always also, it's probably my favorite holiday meat to eat. Not the most kosher, but I will eat ham over turkey, which will lead us to our next one. But if there's a good ham, I'm all about it. I'll eat more ham than anything else at a holiday dinner, whether it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, or otherwise.
So ham is the Christmas for us, and Thanksgiving is for turkey. I'm a fan of the turkey with a lot of gravy. I'm a fan of the mashed potatoes. I'm a fan of the stuffing, of the dressing, whatever you want to call it, with a bunch of gravy on. I think that's my favorite Thanksgiving hot meal part, and I'm also a pie guy. I love pies, pumpkin pies, apple pie. My dad was a pie maker. From the day I was born, we always had pies in the house, depending on the season. Peach pie in the summer, apple pie, pumpkin pie around the holidays. So I'll be eating pies, and I'll be eating mashed potatoes and stuffing. All right, now it's for our least favorite dish. Least favorite Thanksgiving dish. Brandon, before you go, I'm going to go first. And that's what makes our show special, Brandon, because we have different opinions about the same topics. Green bean casseroles can kick rocks. Green bean casseroles are no bueno. I could do without the green bean casserole for the rest of my life.
I don't want to pretend like green bean casserole was something that was my favorite dish growing up. I think it was always sweet potatoes with marshmallows and other stuff. But in recent years, maybe my wife makes a really good one, and it's got breadcrumbs on it baked in. So it's pretty darn good. And while I don't hate turkey to the level of Shelby Harris, and if you watch this week's episode of We're the Harrises, Shelby yet again, and he's been saying it for years. He'll say it. He said it when he and I did a podcast. He said it into the camera on TV stations across Denver, and says it on social media. Shelby hates turkey. He didn't even have turkey at his Thanksgiving dinner.
How do you hate turkey? Turkey's pretty innocuous sort of meat.
It's dry. He thinks it's dry.
Well, that's why you put the gravy on it.
I don't mind turkey, especially if it's moist. But I don't look forward to the turkey. I look forward to the ham, and my wife will always make a ham. She makes a really good turkey, and I carve it because one time on the Today Show, I saw the perfect way to carve it. And so I'm pretty good at carving it. I just don't, I'm like, oh, Thanksgiving's coming up. Here comes turkey. And to be fair, my only Thanksgiving tradition my whole life has been watching the Cowboys. I grew up in Dallas. When I was in high school, they won 3 Super Bowls out of the 4 years I was in high school. And obviously those teams were ascending through my, formative years, junior high and into high school. And so just watching the Cowboys game, which has been a sticking point throughout my adult life, but that's other than the time I got to go to the Thanksgiving game a few years ago, and your old teammate Montre Holland got me tickets. And they lost to the Saints.
Not my teammate.
Actually, Roy Williams just fumbled the ball. Oh, you missed? No, he was with you in 08. Yes, he was. He started
Montre Holland?
Came from the Saints. He was one of your starting offensive linemen. He started at one of your guards with
his name is Montre?
And yep, Montre Holland.
Oh,
played at Florida State, was the #1 recruit in the country, didn't go to Texas, played for the Saints, and came here right before the Saints won a Super Bowl. But yeah, he was your teammate in Mike's last year. The next to last year, because Mike made him run through all of camp. Every day he was on the Rich shooting field because he was overweight in the 09.
I remember the guard that came. I didn't know his name was Montre.
Yeah.
Maybe he had a nickname. He probably had a nickname.
Trey. I think I called him Trey. Him and PJ Alexander are really good friends. Anyway, that was the only time I've gone to the Thanksgiving game ever. But my point is, the Cowboys, who often ruin my Thanksgiving because they lose on Thanksgiving a shitload, and they're probably going to lose tomorrow, except if they're playing the Giants, or they would lose if they're playing the Commanders or the Eagles or a good team. They'll probably beat the Giants. But the Cowboys often ruin but that's all I care about more than the meal is, are the Cowboys going to win the game? And this year I'm just and then you hear Jerry say, oh, we might extend Mike McCarthy. And it's so easy to not like that team. Like at my core, I have to cheer for him. Just like I'm sure parts of you still cheer for the Niners when they're on TV or you yell at the TV. But it's so frustrating. And so tomorrow it's about eating and maybe skiing.
That's right. It's about eating. It's about being with your family, guys. Don't forget, there's very few times in our lives, in our busy, busy lives, that we actually get to slow down and just sit and be with the ones you love. The ones you love might drive you crazy. They might get on your nerves, but they are the only family you've got. So everyone out there, enjoy your Thanksgiving. Just relax. Take it slow. Eat some food. Take some naps. We got a lot of football on the docket on Thursday, and we'll be back on Friday to keep this thing rolling. I'm Nate Jackson. He is Brandon Krisztal of the Billy Krisztal family.
Billy Krisztal.
And this is Off Field. I know, Brandon Krisztal. Off Field.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We'll see you guys next time. Happy Thanksgiving. Gobble, 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 gobble.